recording, and welcome to Online Presenters, our 2019 last Speechathon in this year, and we still have a regular meeting next week. So help me welcome our Toastmaster of the day, Nick Lakhani.
Thank you, Roger. Welcome to the final, but the biggest Speechathon of the year. This is going to be a humdinger. This is going to be classic. We are going to be enthused and enthusiastic. Everybody takes part. Everybody speaks, evaluates, or claps their hands off. Okay? What we're going to do is we're going to have, I mean, this is not a normal meeting. This is better than the normal meeting. We have friends amongst us that we've got to know each other over the various speechathons this year. What we do is we have a timer, we have speakers, we have evaluators. That's it. That's all we need. There's no R counters and chat monitors and watchers and oh my God. We just get down to the nitty-gritty and get things done. Therefore, the first role today I'd like to introduce, all the way from Kazakhstan, please welcome Asil Boyjanova.
Thank you, Nick. So I'm your timer today, and I have 3 colors: green, yellow, and red. For example, Peggy is giving her speech for 4 minutes. So green will be at 3, yellow will be at 3.5, and red will be at 4. If she goes over 30 seconds, I'll be clapping. Okay, that's it. Nick.
Thank you, Asil. I will be mentioning the times for each of the different speakers today because they are all different times. But thank you for that explanation of the colors and the timing and the noise. Now, we have 4 wonderful speakers today. First speaker I'd like to introduce is Peggy. Now, Peggy is going to be doing the Presentation Mastery Level 3 in delivering social speeches. When you think of honoring an individual for lifetime achievements, would you consider someone who's both hosted WWE Raw, that's the World Wrestling Entertainment, as well as a voiceover for SpongeBob SquarePants? Tune in today and find out just who we are honoring today. Please welcome, with the title, Honoring an Individual, Peggy Klauser.
Come on down. You are the first 4 contestants on The Price is Right. From 1972 to 2007, millions heard this across America. They heard this iconic phrase 5 times a week. Today, we are honoring Bob Barker for a life well spent on both entertaining as well as helping others. Mr. Barker embarked as a young man for a short time as a Navy fighter pilot in World War II. From there, he studied economics in college. His next step was a job as a radio broadcaster in Burbank, California. What a stroke of genius for him, because this led to a series of TV appearances as host of various game shows, including Truth or Consequences, and also a little-known show called Simon Says. If you ever have any spare time, I'd encourage you to look on YouTube, and there's a small clip of Simon Says, and I think you'll find it quite interesting how they looked at computers back in the early 70s, as in today. Then the next historic step for Mr. Barker was on December 4th, 1972. He started hosting The Price is Right for the first time, and the rest is history. Mr. Barker's honors include 15 Emmy Awards, as well as a nomination into the Television Hall of Fame. I would be remiss if I didn't mention Mr. Barker as an animal rights activist. He has done tremendous things for animals, including, but not limited to, saving animals from shelters. And he, along with his late wife, started a foundation which lets folks who can't afford to neuter or spay their animals to do such things. Another thing which was highly publicized, and you may remember, is that Mr. Barker hosted the Miss America and Miss USA pageants for over 20 years. But when Mr. Barker requested that Miss America and the pageant sessions take away the furs from animals as gifts for some of the contestants, the pageant refused. Mr. Barker subsequently stepped down. Not many people would look at this as such a strong feeling for animals, to turn down a highly paid job because of something that they were doing wrong to the animals by offering them as potential prizes to contestants. In the past, rather than hoarding away his estimated $70 million, he has selflessly donated both time and money to helping save animals, including circus elephants, which some may not think is a big deal, but Mr. Barker saw that as a cruel treatment to keep a large animal in a tiny confined space. In closing, I'd like to leave you with this reminder: to help control the pet population, have your pet spayed or neutered. Toastmaster, back to you.
Thank you very much, Peggy. Thank you for that. If you have any specific feedback for Peggy or any of our speakers, please do send them through the chat or through private chat. That is up to you. I'm going to leave a few seconds for you to do that right now before our next speaker. Now, our second speaker today is Carol. When someone asks about your core values, how do you answer? In Toastmasters, our behavior is guided by the 4 core values: integrity, respect, excellence, and service. Yet, don't you just resonate with one or maybe 2 of them? Today, we will listen to our international director guide us on our values and how the Toastmasters core values fit in with our internal guidance. With the title of Values Determine Your Choices, please give a very warm welcome to Carol Prahinsky.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Do you ever wonder why it's so hard to make a decision and when you face an ethical dilemma? Do you examine the fact that you might make a very different decision than maybe a friend or a loved one facing the same dilemma? And how do you validate your choice in that decision? So in the previous speech, Peggy was talking about a very difficult dilemma that Bob Barker faced. And he made a choice that perhaps other people who feel maybe just as strongly about animal rights would not make. So let's examine the word values. What does it mean? What does it mean? So values are a basic set of beliefs and ideas that are held by an individual, or, and we look at it more and more this way, are organizations that we represent and support. Toastmasters has its core values, and we'll be talking about them in a few minutes. But first, I want to examine the word values a little bit more closely beyond the definition. What does it mean to have a value? And there are so many values. Which values are the ones that I hold and you hold near and dear to your heart? So we have this value lens, and we're going to take a look at it. But on one side, we have this morality. Morality is our personal compass of values and motives. This is personal. We choose how we're going to steer through the morass of our lives. On the other hand, we have ethics. Ethics are the actions that meet community values. A group of us are deciding that's acceptable or that's not acceptable. Okay, so we've got this me, individual, versus the us, the team. So a group of us as a community. All right, and so we're on this continuum of saying, I think it's more important that I make my choice, or I want to make a choice that is representative and supportive of the community I'm involved with. And both of these are valid decision-making aspects of how we choose our values. Now, there's also this thing called the brain. And I've got the little brain symbol up at the top. And we sometimes try to logically assess our choices. And I teach this to my students. I say, what alternatives do you have? And let's evaluate each of those alternatives to make the best decision. But I have my students, and this is down at the bottom, my students are saying, wait a minute, I'm thinking with my heart, I'm thinking with my emotions, and I have them, and they're very strong. I feel very strongly about them. Yes, that is also an important aspect of deciding the values that are important to you. So we have these continuums, and guess what? They make a 2x2 matrix. So let's go ahead and jump in. The first one we're going to take a look at is the rights and responsibilities lens. And in the rights and responsibilities lens, guess what? It's on the individual side, and we're using logic to determine what is the rights and responsibilities that I have for my decision. It's associated with obligations and duty. So I feel a sense of obligation. I made a commitment. I want to follow through. And that's the rights and responsibility lens. The second lens is called the results lens. And in the results lens, we're looking at our heart and saying, I have goals, I have objectives, and I want to get it done. Now, this is one that some of you might say, yeah, but sometimes the way we get it done matters too. And that's not necessarily clearly indicated in this box. And you're correct. The results lens is saying, I want to get it done, not necessarily how do I get it done. The third box is called the relationship lens. And this one, as it's perceived, is on the side towards community. And this is where we look at it from a community perspective. And it's also in the logical side. So we're saying together, we design and implement processes to assure justice for all. And so this one brings in the idea of fairness and justice in the decisions that we make. What is fair for all parties is one of the important questions in this lens. The last lens is called the reputation lens. And the reputation lens is looking at ethical excellence in our role within the community. These are people that hold this value, set of values very closely, are people that tend to be of service to others. It might be people that, for example, hold the nursing profession close to their hearts. And they say, I want to serve others, and it feels very deep to me in my heart, in my soul, and I'm going to be operating from the reputation lens. And I care very much about the reputation that I have and that others have in the community. Now, in addition to these lenses, we have in each one of the boxes, we have guidelines on how to perform. Okay, the first one is let's be honest and responsible. Honesty is a key word for people that are operating in the rights and responsibilities lens. In the second box, be respectful. So for the results lens, it's important for us that we respect other opinions, even though it might not align with what we want. In the third box, this is the relationship lens. We need to be fair. Again, this idea of justice and fairness is critically important to the success of people that operate in this box. And then the last lens, it's close to our heart. We're going to be compassionate to all others that are operating in the world around us. And we show that, some people would say we have our heart on our sleeve, and sure enough, there it is. Which one do you think you operate more closely to? Typically, we resonate, especially with more experience in our lives, we resonate with one of these four boxes. Now let's shift over to the Toastmasters core values. The Toastmasters core values are integrity, respect, service, and excellence. Now, what I'd like to do is take from Jim Kakachi in his Viewpoint article published in June 2016 when he was the international president for Toastmasters International. He specifically talked about these 4 core values and defined them for us so that we could refer back to them. He said integrity, let me find my notes real fast, sorry about that. Integrity is living up to the Toastmasters promise. We sign the Toastmasters promise when we become members of Toastmasters. In that promise, we agree to attend meetings regularly. We agree to prepare best for our roles. We agree to provide guidance to others in a supportive and respectful environment. The second one is respect. We understand that each of us is unique. Toastmasters is a self-paced program, and occasionally, even though it's self-paced, we occasionally need to help push along our members. And that's a balancing act, but we respect them enough to know when that we should be pushing them or when we should sit back and wait for them to step forward in that responsibility. The third one is service. Service is when we, as members of our club, step up when needed. We step up for roles in the club, we step up as an officer for our club, or we step up if we're operating in a district, we step up to help the district leaders be successful with their events or their leadership, guiding and steering the organization into the future. The last point is excellence. Now this can be defined in a variety of ways. I'm going to define it the way Jim Kakachi defined it. He said, it is performing assigned duties to our best ability. So we've been assigned some duties, whether it be as a member of the club and we're attending a meeting. I've been assigned to be a speaker today. I'm going to do it in the best possible way with excellence. Or if I'm assigned as an officer, same thing. I'm going to do it in the best possible way with excellence. Now, how do you think these 4 core values align with the core values that the presentation that I gave earlier in the development of the values lens? By the way, I forgot to mention the values lens is not a creation of mine. It is created by a woman who instituted, she studied ethics for over 30 years. It's Catherine Bard out of Denver, Colorado, and she has developed a game called the ethics game. No, ethics is not really a game, but she's developed it as a learning tool to help others gain the knowledge of ethics. And when I sat down with her, I said, okay, look at the Toastmaster core values. Are we in alignment with your values? Are we in an over-encompassing perspective covering all of the characteristics of the values according to the way you look at the world? And the answer was fascinating. The answer was yes, because imagine some of these might fall into different boxes, right? Or the same box. All right, so the first one, integrity, is close to the brain. It's a choice that we're making. Again, we're living up to the Toastmasters promise. So we're following through with the obligations and duties that we have made a commitment for. Again, I'm using Jim Kakachi's definitions. And the second one is excellence. Now this is falling into the results lens. Some of you might say, oh, no, wait a minute, it should fall into the reputation lens because that's dealing with excellence, ethical excellence. But the way Jim defined it, he said, no, this one is understanding that each of us is unique and we're self-paced and occasionally we get pushed and needed to be pushed. So this is the way he defined it. Excellence is that we're allowing us to go at our own pace. Respect falls into the relationship lens. And this was the fairness idea that we're using logic in guiding the team and community that we have. So we're stepping up when required. I'm sorry, let's see, respect. I think I already screwed up. Yes. All right, backing up. All right, integrity, no problem. Excellence is that we're performing assigned duties to the best of our ability. Respect is that we're understanding that each of us is unique, self-paced, and occasionally we need to get pushed. And then the last one is service. is stepping up when required. Again, aligning very closely to the reputation lens. We fit in each one of the boxes developed by Catherine Baird. Isn't that beautiful? I think it is. And I was really glad to see that. As a member of the international directors, it is our job to make sure that we are covering core values that are integral to our organization. And do we have all aspects of core values covered? And the answer is yes. So I was very happy to see that. But let's take another look at the other side of values. What causes unethical behavior? And there's three main sources of unethical behavior. One is blind spots. So in each one of these boxes, we have our way of looking at the world, and guess what? We're missing another perspective. It's important to listen to those people around us as they guide us not to oversee those blind spots that we see, that we don't see. So pay attention to people's wisdom around us. The second thing is we have temptations, particularly when we're under stress. Imagine that you are a district director and you are approaching the end of the year and you haven't quite made your goals. You're feeling stress and you're encouraging people perhaps to stretch beyond the requirements so that they skirt around the policies and procedures that we have already in place. That's not good for your values, all right? It's violating many core values that other people have, which is that you follow the rules, that you behave according to what the community wants you to do. And the last one is our vices. Many individuals have choose to behave unethically by relying on vices. Now, sometimes we think of vices as drugs and alcohol. It could be a wide variety of things, but people will choose to act unethically. And it's simply that they choose to do that. And we have to guide or steer them to say, this is unethical. We probably might not use those words, but we're going to guide them to say, this behavior needs to be changed. And we respect you enough that we want to give you the guidance on how to make that change. So it's very important that we do respect the individuals and allow them the freedom to make the choice, but still steer them in a way that allows them to behave ethically according to our community. So as leaders, it's important to understand your values. What are your values? Not just whether it aligns with Toastmasters, but what are your values? And listen to your personal compass internally to what is happening, whether it be your head or your heart. The second thing is that we need to implement. Values are based on action. We see your values based on your actions. The action that meets the shared community values is the ones that we say, thank you. Thank you for your service. It's very important to us. And the third point is that we must incorporate these values into our decisions on a regular, routine basis. It is through our actions, it is through our decisions and our justification for those decisions that others say, aha, I love your values. I appreciate them. Or maybe they also tweak us so that we get better through those feedback loops that we sometimes face as leaders. I want to thank you for your attention today. Values are something that we will continue to practice on an ongoing basis. Pay attention to the people around us as they guide us and steer us to becoming more ethically mature. Mr. Toastmaster Nick.
Thank you for that, Carol. Very enlightening. I'm going to just give a few seconds for people to give some feedback on the chat, either to everybody or personally. In the meantime, that gives me a few seconds actually just to mention that Carol was completing the Leadership Excellence Series and Values and Leadership. Thank you for that. Now, our third speaker is Christian. He is doing the Interpretive Reading Advanced Manual, and number one project is Read the Story. Christian will be sharing one story from the book, Chicken Soup for the Soul, The Wonder of Christmas. The story he will present today is Three Christmases by Connie Rice. He is looking for maximum feedback from the audience through the chat on his use of vocal variety during the delivery. With the title of Three Christmas Miracles, please welcome Christian Ramsden.
I gazed into David's eyes as he squeezed my hand and mouthed the words, "It will be okay. I love you." How? How could it be okay? Nurses and doctors swirled around us as I attempted to understand how the events of the day could have brought us here. In the frantic scramble to save my husband's, bags of bloods and drugs pumped their life-sustaining fluids through what looked like miles of tubes connected to his still body. I gave him a gentle kiss on his forehead as they wheeled him away and watched him disappear through the double doors for emergency surgery. The surgeon said that even if he survived the night, I should not expect him to walk again. In a daze, I stumbled into the hospital chapel and dropped to my knees to pray for a miracle. 6 months earlier, we had stood together in our little Mennonite church, surrounded by friends and family as we exchanged our marriage vows. Many told us we were too young to get married, but young love often overrules common sense. So, at 19 and 21, we promised to love one another in sickness and health, not having any idea how soon that vow would be challenged. December 23, 1977. With only 2 days left until Christmas, David had spent the day taking full advantage of his dad's woodshop to build frames filled with wedding pictures as our holiday gift to family. Money was tight, and those handcrafted reminders of our recent happy day would be all we could offer our loved ones on Christmas morning. At home, I finished up chores and waited for David to come. My family had chosen to celebrate Christmas a few days early on my dad's birthday, a double celebration before my sister's family took off for the holidays. A big dinner followed by gifts was what I was expecting for the evening. But as the clock ticked away, I paced back and forth in our little rental house. I was excited to spend time with family, but anxious that David was so late. Where was he? Finally, I gave in and dialed the phone number for my in-laws' home. It rang and rang and rang. Dave must be in the shop and cannot hear the tone of the phone, I thought to myself. A few minutes later, I dialed again. After a few rings, a strange man's voice answered. "May I speak to David, please?" I asked, wondering who that man was. "No," was the reply. Click. He hung up. My hands were shaking as I dialed the number a third time. The unknown man answered again. "I must speak to David. I am his wife." The words were strong, but inside I was weak and scared. And what seemed like forever, the man's response made my heart stop. "You must go to the emergency room at once. There has been an accident." I don't remember how I ended up in the car with my dad. I must have called him to come and get me. I must have told the emergency room clerk my name. They must have led me to David's side. But what I remember was the gurney taking him away and the hard chapel floor as I kneeled to plead with God to spare his life. As family and friends arrived at the hospital, the story emerged gradually. A younger brother with emotional drug-fueled anger, an older brother trying to set an example of how to walk the straight road, or else. A loaded rifle, a hard metal bullet, a moment and a choice that ended with my husband on the shop floor, blood spilling out his side. A tearful final exchange between brothers that resulted in words of forgiveness. An ambulance with medics rushing to stabilize the lifeless man. Police taking notes and shaking their heads as they led the brother away. A mother lying in a hospital bed, sedated and oblivious to the events of the evening, having suffered an emotional breakdown earlier that week from the stress of dealing with a cherished child under the spell of drugs. A tearful father, unable to process what had just happened. His hands wriggling, his heart breaking. A dying man lying on the cold, hard concrete, surrounded by blood and circled in white light. A peaceful void whispering, "It is not your time." We waited 6 long, agonizing hours. We were so tired as we slumped in the stiff waiting room chairs, but no one slept. We just sat with dazed faces and blank stares. The surgeon finally returned. The bullet had torn a path side to side through David's midsection, hitting the spine and grazing the spinal cord, shattering a rib and blowing out a kidney along the way. He had severe blood loss and paralysis in his lower extremities, but he was alive. Thank you, God. We would handle the rest later. He was alive. That was all that mattered. It was now Christmas Eve, just as the wise men brought free gifts to honor the birth of the Christ child. So God blessed us with 3 Christmas miracles that year. First was the miracle of forgiveness between David and his brother. Immediate, powerful, unexplainable, and unconditional. Second was a miracle of life that baffled even the surgeon, as David had not only survived, but walked out of the hospital 10 days later, despite the severity of his injuries. And the last was the miracle of giving, as our little church family blessed us with a monetary gift on Christmas morning to help ease the burden of hospital expenses. It has now been 40 years, but every year at Christmas, as we decorate the tree and wrap the presents around, I reflect back to that moment when the best gift was not wrapped in paper and bows. It was wrapped in the miracle of forgiveness, the joy of life, and the power of love. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Christian. Thank you. I felt that was delivered very well. Great emotion, great hand gestures. I thought that was. Please give Christian some more feedback, especially on vocal quality. Now, in the meantime, I'm just going to give a few more seconds before we start our evaluations. Just for everybody's information, the evaluations will be 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, and 3 minutes for each of the colors. However, for the timer, so can we have a report on the times, please speakers that we just had? Thank you.
Peggy did 3 minutes 37 seconds. Carol 15 minutes 35 seconds. Carol, I'm sorry that I got distracted by Nick's timing. And Christian 7 minutes and 19 seconds. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Asa. Thank you. Now, for the evaluators, we're going before we have our 4th speaker, we're going to have our first 3 evaluators. Okay, and for the evaluators, as I said, it's going to be 2 minutes, 2.5, and 3 minutes. We actually have Graham, David, and Carol who are evaluating today. Therefore, evaluating Peggy, I'd like to welcome to the lectern Graham and Ken. Graham.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, most welcome guests, and particularly, of course, Peggy. The social speeches project in Pathways, as it was in the traditional Toastmasters program, is one of the more difficult speeches to deliver, because we're not used to giving effusive praise, for example. We're not used to pretending to be delivering a speech to somebody that actually isn't there, which is the case that was done today. And so I would like to commend Peggy on what she did today. She started really well. I think everybody would agree with the "come on down," and I thought, where on earth are we going here? And then she went through the rundown of who she was saying good things about, praising today, Bob Barker. One of the things that I really, really liked about Peggy's presentation was her focus not on Bob Barker's role as an entertainer, although that was obviously the hook by which we all know him, but the focus on his role as an animal activist, speaking about his love of animals, the fact that he was willing to turn down a role, and a fairly significant one, because he felt that he could not in all good conscience continue to do so. And that I thought was a really nice touch. It let us learn more about the recipient of the honour that was being given. You'll notice, by the way, that I've spoken about Bob Barker rather than Mr. Barker, and there's a specific reason why I'm doing that. If you're giving a presentation to a politician or to a public figure other than an entertainer, then you would say, Mr. Barker did this, and etc. But when you're talking about entertainers, one of the things that entertainers do by the very nature of their becoming entertainers is they give up the things like honorifics. So because we feel a connection, whether it exists or not, with entertainers like Bob Barker, refer to them in a more or a less respectful way, if you like. So it becomes Bob Barker. Entertainers, singers, performers lose the Mr. and just become a friendlier connection. So that's one suggestion I would suggest for Peggy. Another suggestion that I would make is that the delivery wasn't perhaps as smooth as it might have been, largely, I think, because Peggy was reading from her notes rather than just referring to them. But the research and the detail that went into this, I think, is what really made this a very successful honouring of an individual. It wasn't just saying, hey, Bob Barker was a great entertainer. It was Bob Barker was a great person because, and that detail is what makes a truly good speech of honour, as this one was. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Graham. Thank you for that evaluation of Peggy. Our next evaluator, evaluating Carol, please welcome to the lectern, David Carr.
Mr. Toastmaster, I think everyone here can learn something from Carol. She gave what is essentially a canned presentation from Toastmasters International, but we did not get a canned presentation from Carol. And I do see a lot of people using the slides provided by Toastmasters International for some of these standard educational speeches. I've even been told by people that it doesn't count if you don't use the official slides from Toastmasters International. Some people will kind of hack them and they'll use that as a basis and then add a couple of additional bullets. She went the other way. She had her own presentation in her own style. And one of the tricks with the canned presentations from TI is a lot of times they don't necessarily follow best practices about what you should and should not put on a slide. I think Carol's slides were very clear. The main quadrant presentation that she gave us was good, and it was repeated in a few variations as she went through the different varieties of looking at leadership and values. Now, her introduction also was striking because she found a way to relate back to the previous presentation. I see sometimes people do that and it doesn't work that well, but she found a way of relating to the story we just heard about Bob Barker and his values and why they were striking to the subject of her speech. And so that was good. That was one definite way she personalized it. She personalized it also by using the quote from Jim Kakaki that I think is something that she may have actually been there for in the room with, getting from him at some point, and she is in Toastmasters leadership. No? All right, you read it somewhere. You saw it somewhere. At any rate, he was probably one of the best international presidents of the past several years, and she took those lessons and internalized them. There's a question on the standard evaluation form about did she use notes, and we expected a professional speaker like Carol won't be using notes too extensively. She actually did have one moment of, oops, I got to find my notes. But she made her way through it with good humor. And I think it's acceptable for the most experienced speakers to use notes in the example of, I want to get this quote exactly right. So that was wonderful. I had one minor critique on visuals that I wanted to share. Let's see, is this the right screen? It's not the right screen. Sorry, too many screens. There we go. In her slide, you have a couple of images here that have transparent backgrounds and blend into the slide, and a couple that have white backgrounds. I probably would have put a white background behind the whole thing if I were going to use those particular images, or try and hunt down ones that do have transparent backgrounds just so they match. And I'm done. If I can find the stop share button.
Thank you very much, David.
There we go.
Thank you very much for that. And I believe Carol was holding up the Toastmaster magazine for the source of some of that. Right?
Yes.
Thank you for that. Now, pulling double duty today, evaluating Christian. Please welcome back Carol Krasinski. Carol.
Thank you. Christian, oh my gosh, you have an award-winning speech here. And I say that with knowledge of seeing many award-winning speeches. This is one. I want you to continue practicing it and bringing it out in another realm. I want you to practice it in different realms. I'd love to see this on the international stage. There was a couple things I particularly liked. One was the sentence fragments of the story piecing together over the period of time where you, the storyteller, is at the hospital and these fragments are coming together. The word choices like lifeless man, even though he's alive, this strong, strong message. I was really touched towards the end. You talked about the 3 gifts. And then later you referred back to the 3 gifts and you said, but the best gift was the miracle of forgiveness. I had goosebumps at that point. It was the pauses, the inflection, the way you gave that message was so powerful. When I get goosebumps, to me, that's a winner. And that's how I'm able to say without any doubt in my heart that is a winner. I want you to keep practicing this. Now, there is a question that I have, which is it possible to shift the gender for the speaker? Can the speaker be the husband and the wife be the person who is injured severely? I know the gunfight might be a little bit more traumatic, but I felt a bit uncomfortable at points because you weren't, I don't want to get into any politics here, but I want to see you represented from the masculine perspective because it fit better with the story that you were sharing. I think it would be a better fit. So I would love to see this message again. Your story is beautiful. And I think it's timely in terms of not just this time of year, but it's timely any time of the year. I want to hear it again. Thank you so much. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster. Nick.
Thank you very much, Carol, for that evaluation. You can take a rest now. Oh, that's great, fantastic. Now, we're now moving on to a next segment of the meeting. We're going to have a panel discussion. And running the panel discussion will be Joy. Joy is doing the Visionary Communication Level 5, demonstrating expertise by using moderate a panel discussion. Joy retired from a full-time job 6 years ago. Oh, sorry, by the way, the timing for this is going to be 20, 25, and 30 minutes. Is that correct, Joy? Yeah. Okay. So,
Nick, I was told that it is 25, 27 and a half, and 30.
Okay, yeah, okay, fine, no problem. I was
Thank you.
going on the agenda, but if you've been given other information regarding that, that's cool with that. So 25, 27 and a half, and 30. Thank you. Joy retired from a full-time job 6 years ago and has traveled a lot ever since. She has met many people from all ages who seem to be envious that she was able to retire so early. But she has also met many people who are afraid of going into retirement and who don't enjoy their time being retired. Poor financial planning earlier in life can partly be a reason for that, but often the reason is a lack of mental preparation. Therefore, Joy has invited a group of the Toastmasters to share their ideas on how best to mentally and physically prepare for that meaningful retirement. The panel discussion has a title of How to Prepare for Retirement. Please give a very warm welcome for Joy Knudsen.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, and thank you everybody who has chosen to join this online meeting, and especially thanks to all the 4 wise women who have agreed to be panelists in this discussion about how to best prepare for retirement. An earlier speaker, Karel Prahensky, gave a fantastic framework for our discussion, reminding of that our values form a very important basis for all our life decisions. And retirement is one of the most important decisions we can take in life. And I see life as a project, a very difficult project, because you cannot decide when it starts and when it ends, and you have limited control over all kinds of obstacles that are thrown on your ways, and even the resources you can use in this project. But that's why it's also very important that people who are experienced and who reflect on life are willing to share their experience, so that those of you who haven't started thinking of retirement yet can get some inspiration. And in the end of the panel discussion, I hope there will be time for questions to the panelists from the other online participants, so that if you have any burning questions, you can get answers to those. To start with, I would like to ask all of my 4 panelists to give a 1 to 2 minute introduction to themselves and what is their life situation right now in relation to retirement thoughts. And I have 4 panelists. 3 of them are from the US and 1 from Kazakhstan, which is another continent. So I hope there will be a bit differing viewpoints on this issue. And I would love to start with Elaine Nieperding. What is your situation in relation to retirement right now, Elaine?
Well, especially by other folks who are in the US and familiar with Social Security and Medicare, well, I'm right in that sphere. I'm 67 years old. Just a year ago, I started collecting Social Security. about $1,100 extra a month. I'm enjoying the extra scratch. And I also recently started receiving my Medicare benefits, and happily, I have a very good health plan that I'm happy with. But when it comes to looking at how I plan for this period of my life, I didn't plan so much. I am very much a go with the flow person. And I would relate my go with the flowness to my own sense of inner connection. And I would say, since I've been in my 40s, continuing to pay deeper and deeper connection to guidance from the inside. In other words, I can respond to my world on the outside, but no matter what's going on the outside, I want to match what my potential responses might be to my best sense of wisdom, guidance, and love that is my core driver. So surprisingly, I found myself at age 50 going back to school for nursing. And at age 54, 55, I started a new career. I became a registered nurse. I practiced in the hospital setting for about 8 years. And then, beautifully, wonderfully, I was able to bring my expanded perspectives about geriatric care into the sphere of caring for my parents who were in their mid-90s. And I was able to help them through this end-of-life experience. After they passed, I wasn't sure what I was going to do, but I found myself curious what coursework I should take to maintain a holistic nursing credential. And so then I became a coach. At this period in my life, I have given myself the freedom to work at whatever pace I want. I certainly know that for income purposes, I'm probably going to be picking up my pace a lot more within the next year for more income, more coaching, because there are repairs on my house that I don't think aren't going to be covered by what's in my retirement and Social Security. This is a happy period of my life, and as far as retirement planning goes, I would say it's a very individual thing. Pay attention to the heart.
Yeah, thank you, Elaine. And Patty Adams, would you like to tell about your situation?
Sure, Madam Moderator. Thank you, Joy. I am what you call semi-retired. I've been working since I was 14, and I'm now 57, but I have not worked since July of 2018. I'll kind of say I was forced into retirement, although my Toastmaster DTM husband is sitting right beside me. He decided to retire, and I followed, so that's how we ended up in Florida. I worked in the accounting field for many years. Was a late bloomer with getting my degree. So I got a degree in accounting in my early 50s and then switched over to a master's in psychology because I really enjoy counseling others. That is like a great passion of mine. My biggest fear about retirement is, what am I going to do? We wasn't really worried about the financial aspect, but what am I going to do with all this time if I'm not working? I've been working for 35 plus years. And you'll get to hear a little bit more about that as we talk this evening. But it's been a great joy. I mean, I've enjoyed working in the corporate world. Yeah, not so much. So my joy is that if I am going to work, it has to be something that I'm extremely passionate about, or I absolutely will not do it because I will not enjoy it. So for my ultimate retirement, I will work if I can work in something that's my choice that I'm going to enjoy, not worried about the money, just worried about something I enjoy, or I will leave it all alone, travel, and enjoy my life. Back to you, Madam Moderator.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Patty. And then Chris Galt, would you like to introduce yourself and your situation?
Thanks, Joy and fellow Toastmasters. Well, I am not retired. Or am I? If you look at my Instagram feed, you would probably think yes, because you'll see pictures of landmarks all over the world, mountains, oceans, sunsets. I travel a lot with my husband, but I also work very hard on our website to make our living. So if you define retirement as having worked at a job for so many years that you can now stop working and still get a paycheck, I can never retire, because I've never had a job. I've always just done what I loved and figured out how to make a living with it. I have always been my own boss, but my boss is a slave driver, I'll tell you that. Joy asked if we would maybe give, I do, I work all the time. It seems like, but I also have a lot of fun. Joy asked that we consider maybe younger people and give some advice from our perspective. And I would say three things. For those Americans, and as Elaine mentioned, I am also 67 and just started collecting Social Security. Now, I was in a situation all my life where I could have avoided paying into Social Security. I was in cash-based businesses and being my own boss. I am so glad now that I did pay in. This is the closest thing I've ever had to a regular paycheck, is getting this Social Security. So I would give advice to younger people in the United States. Make sure to take care of that little checkbox. And as you start getting closer towards your older years where you can retire, get rid of that big house. We got rid of our house in exchange for an RV. We traveled around for that was our only house for 14 years, and it gives you so much more freedom. We now have a house again, but it's just a little townhouse. There is no problem with locking the door and taking off for a month or two wherever we want to go. I strongly encourage people, as they build their life, as they build their careers and their families, and they get a bigger house, when those kids are gone, downsize. And lastly, keep on learning. What a great example Elaine had, going back to nursing school. Wow. Keep on learning. Just because you've built a career and it's over doesn't mean that you can't have an encore. Back to you, Joy.
Yeah. Thank you, Chris. And then our last or fourth panelist, Asril. What are your thoughts about retirement at this point of your life? You are probably the youngest here online right now.
I'm so glad that I agreed to be a participant in your discussion. Joy, thank you so much, because I certainly need to think about retirement starting now, because before I haven't thought about this. So I have two news. One good, that we can live until 90 or more. The second news, bad news, that we might not have enough money to support ourselves, especially in Kazakhstan, because pension, maximum pension is around like $292 and minimum $150. So I certainly need to think about at least about passive income, doing something like maybe buying house and put some money like down payment and just live of renting it, or maybe do something online, because right now I'm learning how to do videos, and Toastmasters is a great platform to do that, and it's also a great platform to communicate with people around the world. So I'm so happy that I'm doing Toastmasters online. And also after when Elaine even studied at her 50, I think it's never late to study somewhere and get a master's or a do PhDs or something like that. So yeah, thank you again for making me to think about, retirement.
Asil, I would like to ask you, how do you imagine or where would you like to live when you get older and maybe not working anymore? I mean, geographically, and where would you like to live if you could choose freely, if you had a wallet that is just getting filled all the time automatically?
Well, my world around my daughter, and she certainly wants to live in America or Canada. So probably we will go there just to be near her. So that's our plan. I hope it will work, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Asil. Then I would like to come back to Elaine and Patty and hear about what kind of conditions would you like to live later in life if you cannot afford living anymore or for some reason want to change your living condition geographically and practically.
I'll be happy to start.
Yeah.
In this particular year, 2019, I've experienced my 50th high school reunion. And I have found that many of my high school alumni friends, many have relocated to the warmer climate of Florida. And so I'm actually beginning to think about that for the first time, whether that's a possibility of something I would want to do now while I still could. Some of my own husband's health concerns would have me look at whether that's the best thing to do, whether making a move would be wise or not. But that is one of the things which I'm beginning to explore, perhaps in a new way, just because of my conversations with high school friends recently.
Yeah. Thank you, Elaine. What about you, Patty?
We actually moved to Florida. So this is our retirement, our final destination, may I say. I am from Texas originally, and my husband is from Oklahoma. And he managed a plant for like 35 years, which is why we ended up here in Florida. He was with Citgo Petroleum. And I don't think he'll go anywhere else because he doesn't like the cold. So he doesn't want tornadoes or earthquakes or cold weather or any of that stuff. And because I love him so much, Florida is the place for us.
Wow. Thank you, Patty. How about your social relations now? Have you managed to get a network of new friends in Florida?
Oh, yes. I'm an extrovert, so never had a problem with friends whatsoever. We immediately got connected with the local church. I also run a local nonprofit organization, Ministry for Scars of the Past, so I minister to sexual assault victims. We're both involved with Toastmasters, both DTMs, both involved with amateur ham radio, so we get to do a lot of activities as far as emergency communications go. I write books, and so I'm enjoying the passion of being able to write again. So, you know, the most important thing is because of all these events, we did water aerobics during the summer. I am constantly engaging myself with others so that we don't get so, oh my gosh, we're just stuck here in this house every day. That would be a drag.
Asil, are there any possibilities in Kazakhstan to move to any kind of retirement community? What do old people do there? Do they stay in the previous homes?
Well, they usually stay with their children.
Okay.
So I never experienced seeing old people going to nursing home because usually children take care of their parents.
Okay.
Either, it should be youngest son, usually youngest son. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And then I would like to go back to Chris. You talked about traveling and working while traveling. And I guess that most of this is happening online. Could you give some advice how to get started with this kinds of virtual life?
Yes,
and working and learning
as you were
online.
asking, where do people want to live? Yeah, I really wanted to jump in there and say, I want to live nowhere and everywhere.
Yeah.
There is a Reddit group called Digital Nomads, and I love reading all their stories and looking at different places to live. I've researched going to Costa Rica, to Ecuador, to Vietnam, and living for months on end, because as long as you have an internet connection, and all these places have, if you have developed some kind of skill on the internet, you can make a living. You know, we make our living from our website, which is a subscription website. So meaning there's all sorts of information on there that is free. And our topic is for older people, how to use digital technology, how to manage all the photos on your phone, how to use Google Maps, how to use Google Translate when you're in another country, all those things. And we have lots of stuff for free, and a YouTube show. But then if you want it all, you have to pay us a little bit of money to get a username and password in order to get all of the content we offer. And we can manage that website from anywhere.
Yeah. Chris, can you also help people find friends online?
Oh. Toastmasters is probably one of the very best things there. We meet a lot of people as we travel, because we're not just being tourists. We travel to work. So we're giving seminars everywhere we go. So we meet hundreds of people. But you know what? I am a big fan of having close friends. Close friends are what's important, not just acquaintances. And those are few and far between. So you really have to cultivate any new friends and keep in touch. Now, that's what the internet is great for. Facebook has a lot of problems, but boy, is it the best way to keep in touch with far-flung friends. So I am still a big fan of Facebook for that purpose.
Thank you, Chris. Then I would like to ask a quick question about how do you keep yourself physically fit and take care of your health? Because that is a big issue for many retired people, that maybe they have been working in offices all their life and they don't have very strong health while they retire, and then they start getting all kinds of sicknesses. Who would like to answer this question? Anybody, any thoughts? Elaine?
I'll be happy to start. I'm so happy I still have a dog at home. The dog starts the day. My husband and I have a routine for letting him out, and then we both throw our clothes on and take about a 20-minute walk around the neighborhood. I'm happy routinely I get at least that much exercise. But I must say, since I left bedside nursing, I'm not as active as I was then. If you're a floor nurse, you are moving for 12 hours when you're not charting and doing your documentation.
Okay.
I have a new goal to up my activity in other arenas this year. Planet Fitness looks like it's calling me there.
Thank you, Elaine. Anybody else? Any thoughts on this issue?
My husband does racquetball, so I try to get on the court with him, although he travels and does racquetball. So he does a lot of racquetball. I do less racquetball.
Okay.
One of the things that everyone may want to keep in mind is, check with your Chamber of Commerce or even your local churches. One of the things that our church do is we have a seniors group, and every morning the seniors from our community, free of charge, get to walk around our gym. So you're in air conditioner, whether it's hot, cold, whatever the temperatures are, you're not worried about being in all kind of weather. There's typically some type of staff member there that can help you in the event that there is some type of illness that you have to where you may need a walker with you. So those are just some of the things to look at. Like, I never knew that those type of things were available. And just knowing that there are things in the community that can help get you up and get you moving. Also, we have a Parks and Recreation. So they do dancing for people of all ages every Monday night free of charge. And so I'm all for free at retirement.
Wow, sounds like a fantastic place where you're living now. Asil and Chris, do you have any thoughts on this?
I'll add a couple words.
Chris,
That's
yeah.
the one thing that was a disappointment to me in the RV lifestyle. I was the physical activity. I thought just by virtue of traveling everywhere, we would be doing hiking and biking and playing pickleball and all those activities. Nope, didn't happen. Especially when you are a digital nomad, you're making your living on the computer. We were either sitting at the table with our computers, or we were sitting in the driver's seat and the passenger seat on the road. There was very little physical activity. But now we are trying to remedy that some. I have finally given up and signed on to a gym and am taking yoga classes. I love yoga.
Good. Yes, and Patty?
One of the things to keep in mind is I have a Fitbit, so you all can see. So it makes me do intentional walking because every hour, yes, it'll say, okay, go walk your 250 steps. So even if I'm getting up and walking around my house or outside, it's reminding me that you need to get up and do something. And so when I was seeing my dietitian, she said, well, how much did you walk? And I said, oh, I walked, let's just say 2 miles today. And she said, how much intentional walking did you do? So I had to learn that was a difference in just getting up and just walking leisurely and actually making it an intention for you to do a certain amount of steps every single day.
Yes.
I learned how to turn my Fitbit off.
That's also a good thing to be able to do. Now I would like to give the rest of the online participants a chance to ask any of our panelists any questions you have on this retirement issue. Do you have any? Yes, Krish?
Yes, thank you, Madam Facilitator. So I have a question to all of the panelists. A couple of you mentioned about the importance of having sound or good finance to support your lifestyle. What do you think would be your biggest challenge to have at least one income stream that is consistent and is there to support the lifestyle that you want? So what would be that biggest challenge that you would have to overcome?
Debt. Get rid of debt. That's every dollar of debt that you get rid of is probably worth 2 of income because you don't have to be servicing that. That's been just the biggest point in my financial life, is to not have any debt.
And Chris brings up a good point. Not only, keep your debt reduced, but don't live above your means. I mean, as young people, we had 401ks and we did all these different things to make sure that we saved money, but we also were not tapping into those things every time something happened. Oh, this happened, so we need to go do a hardship withdrawal from our 401k. No, just reduce getting your hair done and your nails done and taking trips and getting expensive purses or whatever you do, minimize it, know what you're worth, and just spend as a minimalist. And that way, when retirement comes, you can use those funds to pretty much do anything that you want. And so just be wise with your spending early on. And a lot of times people are not taught about budgeting, so they don't know anything about it. Learn about budgeting. There are so many courses out there that can teach you how to budget. If you budget well now, trust me, when the time comes for you to retire, you'll have the money that you need to do what you like to do.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Patty.
Thank you.
Patty. Yeah.
As far as having some income stream, though, to me, the most important thing is to find something you love to do. If you find something you love to do, in today's world, in the gig economy, you can charge for that. I mean, my definition of success is to find something you love to do so much that you do it for free. I've done that. I have, but that you're so good at it that people are happy to give you money for your expertise.
Yes, thanks, Chris. Asil, have you got any new ideas while you have been listening to this? Elderly, older people than you.
I'm concentrating on time.
Okay.
I will also say one other thing.
Yes.
Right. Because we stay so connected with our community, some opportunities, and I'll say what Chris said, has come our way to get paid for things that we were not even anticipating payment for. Through our church, we started doing GED prep classes, helping people to get their GEDs that did not graduate and get their high school diploma or study for a college prep test. Those type of things are things that we never looked at doing. Yet when we were approached by our pastor to get involved with youth as well as older people, we started getting paid for doing something that we both really love, which is education, and getting paid for. We had no intention of that income coming in. And it's all because of us staying connected with our community.
Yeah, thank you. Does anybody have anything they absolutely want to say before I summarize our panel discussion? No. Okay, we have had this very exclusive group of experienced wise women discussing retirement. And what my main takeaway is that this group has been very positive about retirement and are very good planners, because they seem to be in control of their lives and see a lot of possibilities that you can continue doing or start doing while you leave maybe your full-time job. And there has been a lot of emphasis on being flexible and willing to learn new things, and also that we have ability to start new things. And that one very important thing we should all learn is to use technology better, because we can move part of our lives to the virtual world. We can even create friendships, we can do our learning online, and of course find a lot of information how to do things better and smarter. And since this group of people has been so exclusive, the main reason for that is that we are all Toastmasters. So we are on this platform because we want to improve ourselves, and we want to learn from others. We want to get new ideas and find new ways. And I have myself got already a lot out of this club, being a member 1 year. So if you want to have a better life, I propose that you join Online Toastmasters or any other Toastmaster club to get a better life. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Joy, and all your wonderful, excellent work, really well out and well conveyed. Thank you for that. Now, it's the end of our meeting. I believe after that was just over 30 minutes, so that was good time. I was kindly be putting the evaluation. Thank you very much. Good job with
Nick, we can hear you. Can you clear your...
Okay. Okay.
Better. Now we lost you.
Well, thank you very much. We have hit our time for today. Sorry about that, Nick. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording and officially end our meeting right now.